NTV, turning on your world.
Good morning to you. Welcome to AM Live. My name is Mark Masai and the countdown is truly on. I know I've been saying this in the last few weeks, but it is truly on because we're 10 days away from the general election. And there's a lot of concerns, a lot to address, a lot to talk about in terms of the main players in the political field, and also the referee, that is the IEBC, and they will be meeting with the 4 presidential candidates today to explain 1 or 2 things that have been raised, and we'll be getting to that with my panel in the paper review as well as in the discussion as from 6:30 a.m. So join in the discussion online with our hashtag AMLive in NTV and send your opinions as well as your contribution as you follow the discussion with our youthful perspective from our youthful panel, being a Friday. So tuchangamke and get to what is the latest action from the campaign trail, and the countdown is on for that as well. I believe they're now down to 8 or 9 days for the campaigns to continue, just over a week. And we start with what the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party was up to, and it has launched the Rauka movement to mobilize voters to turn up and vote for them at the general election. This initiative was launched yesterday as Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga sold himself as the only front runner in the race to State House with no corruption baggage, while reacting to the High Court ruling that found Kenya Kwanza's running mate Rigathi guilty of obtaining over 200 million shillings fraudulently. Azimio also brokered a truce that saw candidates for the woman representative and Bahati Member of Parliament seat bury the hatchet.
And is a salary like everyone else, which is 710,000, just to give you the exact figure of what their pay is. And then they do have, so we've removed the plenary sitting, because the plenary sitting is actually, it's part of the 710.
During the 12th Parliament, members of Parliament were receiving 5,000 shillings per plenary sitting. In a week, they held 4 sittings equating to the total of 20,000 shillings, and in a month, 80,000 shillings. And the salaries for members of Parliament has now been bumped to 710,000 shillings from 621,250 shillings. In 2017, the SRC gazetted the guidelines in July, scrapping off car grant, special parliamentary allowance, reimbursable mileage allowance, plenary sitting allowance and special responsibility allowance, and any other benefits not specified by members of Parliament moved to court to challenge the same, and it was quashed in December.
Matters court. Every aggrieved party has a right to approach court so that you seek a legal redress for that particular issue that is hurting you. How are we prepared to go to court? Number one, we have a legal team that is very strong.
On the other hand, the Commission has renamed the car grant to transport allowance and enhanced it to 7.5 million shillings.
Beg your pardon. That story is also something that will be a talking point on our panel today, as the SRC says no pay rise for president as MPs lose allowances. That will be MPs in the next parliament. And that story by Helen Aura will also be airing it in a bit. But first, let's just put things into perspective, because we're in the campaign trail countdown to the general election, and it's just over a week for the campaigns to continue, and 10 days to people going to the ballot. And yes, let's start again from the top. Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition Party has launched the Rauka movement to mobilize voters to turn up and vote for them at the general election. This initiative was launched yesterday as Azimio presidential candidate Raila Odinga sold himself as the only front-runner in the race to State House with no corruption baggage while reacting to the High Court ruling that found Kenya Kwanza's running mate Rigathi guilty of obtaining over 200 million shillings fraudulently. Azimio also brokered a truce that saw candidates for the woman representative and Bahati member parliament seat bury the hatchet.
Sababu wakienda wote wawili au watatu tutakuwa tumeingiza goli yetu wenyewe na kiti itaenda na wapinzani wetu. Kwa hivyo wale watakubaliana, baba akija atangaze hapa kama wewe ni mfuasi na wako sio amewachwa kwa uwanja, usikasirike, watajipeana kwa sababu ya azimio la umoja.
Sasa nyinyi mkichagua Ruto na wale na huyu jamaa na kesho koti sema wamefungwa, si tutakosa president na deputy president hapa Kenya? Tunaweza ingia kwa matanga kama hiyo?
Huyu Rigathi leo kwa gazeti wanasema mambo ya 200 milioni ambazo alichukua za serikali zirudi. Milioni 100 alichukua huko Bungoma, huko nyumbani kwetu. Akauzia Lusaka aliyekuwa governor Wilibaro na shilingi milioni 100 Wilibaro moja.
Hii uchaguzi itakuwa baina ya wafisadi na baina ya Wakenya ambao wanataka mabadiliko. Those who want change and those who want continuation of the status quo. Umesikia wale jamaa umepanga njama ya kuingia serikali ili waende watetee wizi wao. Bwana Tangatanga anawatetea kusema, oh, those people are being arrested because they are associated with me. You are a
Kenyatta over the president's utterance in Nakuru that Ruto is dishonest and thus not yet ripe to be president. The team that was campaigning in Mount Kenya East region through the counties Omeru, Tharaka Nithi and Embu said that it is in fact the president who has turned dishonest, thus dishonoring his region. They further advanced their grand plan for the country should they clinch power, even as they discredited Azimio presidential flag bearer Raila Odinga.
Sasa wewe hausimami, wewe unaniuliza maswali mingi ya nini? Tafadhali bwana rais, wewe waachia mimi mtu ya kitendawili ni munyoroshe.
Badala ya kuja hapa kutuambia asanti na kupatia shukrani, Uhuru anasimama mbele za watu wengine anatukana sisi. Anatuambia ati William Ruto ule alikuja hapa akatumwombea kura ati anadanganyana.
Iko udanganyifu, wewe rais ndio ulidanganya watu ya Mount Kenya. Kweli ama uongo? Ulituambia mambo ya handshake hapana ya 2022 na ilikuwa ni mambo ya 2022. Hawa watu ya maua uliwaambia utafutia soko ya miraa, alitafuta ama hakutafuta? Alitudanganya hakutudanganya? Wewe rais, hawa watu ya maua alikupigia kura. Miaka 5 huja kuja hapa maua, amekuja. Lakini umeenda pale Kisumu mara 17 pale hukupigiwa.
Uhuru Kenyatta, you have 12 days in office, and I want to tell you, it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter the kind of insults you hurl at us. Your time is up. Prepare to go home.
They were not the only ones on the campaign yesterday. Agano Party presidential candidate David Mwaure Waihiga yesterday pitched camp in Mount Kenya region where he toured Murang'a, Nyeri, Laikipia, Meru, Embu and Kirinyaga counties in his quest for votes from the mountain region. Mwaure promised the residents that if elected president in the August general election, his priority will be to eradicate corruption that continues to burden Kenyans. He also promised to reduce the pay-as-you-earn tax by 50% to cushion Kenyans from the tough economic times.
Pei tutaikata na nusu, na pei inalipwa na Wakenya karibu milioni 17 ili Wakenya waweze kupeleka shilingi 1,000 kama mshahara wako ni shilingi 25,000 ama 40. Yani ni kutafuta suluhu za haraka Wakenya wasikufe. So vile mmetuona hapa, sisi si kama hawa. Hatujajihusisha na mambo hilo alifanya. Mimi na kumwombea mweza wangu hatujaitwa majina yetu katika hiyo kashfa. Sisi hatujaitwa majina yetu kwa KEMSA, kwa Anglo Leasing, hawa wote wametajwa. Na vile tumesema, kama ulikuwa kwa serikali 20, 30, 40 years, kwa nini hujabadilisha?
Meanwhile, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority has warned the police that they will be held personally responsible for meeting violence, I should say, against Kenyans during and after the August 9th general election. IPOA chairperson Ann Makori, who was speaking in Mombasa during a workshop training on prosecution of electoral offences and such as violence, also cautioned the officers against executing any unlawful order. At the same time, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nuruddin Haji, has urged Kenyans to report any cases of brutality during and even after the polls day. Politicians planning to cause chaos or use criminal gangs to disrupt the exercise will be dealt with according to the law. Haji appealed to the stakeholders within the justice system to also deploy and monitor the elections.
Elections in Kenya are always emotive and involve a lot of activities which at times breed crime. It is prudent that players in the criminal justice system be equipped with knowledge that will enable them to dispense justice expeditiously.
The police shall strive for professionalism and discipline and shall promote and practice transparency and accountability.
From the mapping processes, unlike other elections, we will have data that we can follow up even after the election in terms of the offenses that have been committed. And as you all know, crime has no expiry date. As ODPP, we will collect and collate that data.
And for the months and days to come, here's something to look out for. The Salaries Remuneration Commission has dealt a blow to the incoming members of Parliament and members of the County Assembly by scrapping the plenary sitting allowance. Commission has, however, retained the salaries for the President and the Deputy President at 1.4 million shillings and 1.2 million shillings monthly payment, respectively. In a Gazette notice dated August 9th, the lawmakers' salaries have been upgraded from 621,250 shillings to 710,000 shillings. Helen Aura had this package.
11 days to the general election, and the Lynn Mengich-led commission has abolished the 5,000 shillings plenary sitting per session for members of parliament and instead consolidated the salaries accrued to a member of parliament's basic salary, commuter allowance, house allowance and salary market adjustment. Mengich says the abolition of the allowance in the 13th parliament will save taxpayers close to 1.5 billion shillings.
They earn is a salary like everyone else, which is 710,000, just to give you the exact figure of what their pay is. And then they do have, so we've removed the plenary sitting because the plenary sitting is actually, it's part of the 710.
During the 12th Parliament, members of Parliament were receiving 5,000 shillings per plenary sitting. In a week, they held 4 sittings equating to the total of 20,000 shillings and, in a month, 80,000 shillings. Adding the salaries for members of Parliament has now been bumped to 710,000 shillings from 621,250 shillings. In 2017, the SRC gazetted the guidelines in July, scrapping off car grant, special parliamentary allowance, reimbursable mileage allowance, plenary sitting allowance and special responsibility allowance, and any other benefits not specified by members of parliament moved to court to challenge the same, and it was quashed in December.
Matters court. Every aggrieved party has a right to approach court so that you seek a legal redress for that particular issue that is hurting you. How are we prepared to go to court? Number one, We have a legal team that is very strong.
On the other hand, the Commission has renamed the car grant to transport allowance and enhanced it to 7.5 million shillings. Earlier on, the members of parliament wanted a salary increment of up to 1.2 million shillings, but the commission did not approve. The salary for the president and his deputy will also remain at 1.4 million shillings and 1.2 million shillings specifically. Helen Aura, NTV.
And that story on the review of packages as well as the salaries for some of the public officials. We'll start off with that in our paper review with my youthful panel. It's Friday, so it's youth perspective, and it is the concerns that have been raised 10 days to the general election. But wacha tuanze na gazeti, tuone nani atauza gazeti gani best, depending on your skills as well as the headlines that we have. And that story, lady and gentlemen, I'll actually first introduce them just to put it in context to understand who they represent, the interests they represent. Labda wanajisimamia, labda wanasimamia mtu mwingine. So kaende. Irene Mayaka, I'll start with the lady. Irene Mayaka is ODM nominee to National Assembly, and she was paying attention to that story by Helen Aura, because if she makes it to Parliament, some perks have gone, but salary katakuwa kameongezwa. So she'll tell us her reaction to that. Samuel Masaki, the Youth for Kenya Kwanza Presidential Campaign Coordinator, on Irene's right, and Alan Chacha, the Executive Director for Universities and Colleges Students Peace Association of Kenya. So you need a UXPAC. Acha tuseme UXPAC sababu title yako ndefu na inaonekana iko na uzito. So Alan Chacha, Samuel Masaki, Irene Mayaka, thank you guys for joining us. 10 days to the polls. Wacha tuanze hapo kwanza kwa SRC and the fortunes or misfortunes it has for some of the public officials, and it's on all the papers, but let me start with the Daily Nation, and it says pay rise in disguise for MPs, and lawmakers may have lost a plenary sitting allowance but will walk away with a much better deal as they gain a heftier House allowance, beg your pardon. And let me see how the Standard has reflected that particular story. Yes, no pay rise for president as MPs lose allowances. They go by that. And the salaries of the executive and senior police officers will remain the same, but speakers of county assemblies and CECs, that is county executives and various dockets, get hefty increase. And my director will tell me where to hold it up to. And the Star, this is how they reflect it. They actually have a breakdown of the perks, actually the salaries, new salaries for state officers, all from president, even including the IEBC chair. And we see the MPs will be getting 710,000 shillings as a salary every month, and MPs, MCAs land sweet deal in new SRC pay pack. So kind of, you know, the same tone there with the Daily Nation. So let's start there, and we'll get to the Business Daily in a bit. I'll start with Irene, who, if she makes it to Parliament, are you happy or not with what you've seen as the reviews there by SRC?
I'd say my view of this is the fact that I don't like the fact that they removed the plenary allowances and increased the salary instead. And the reason for that is because if you're increasing the salaries for MPs and you're not penalizing them on the plenary, it means then some of the lawmakers will not even come to the assemblies.
So they need an incentive to do their job?
Not really. It's not an incentive.
Yes.
It's not an incentive.
Right,
but
right.
if you're paying me salary, but you're not giving me a plenary session, I can make a decision or a choice to attend or not to attend.
Yes.
And you'll not peg me or hold me against it.
Nothing that obligates you to
yes,
be there.
exactly. And
Right.
I'm talking about this from experience, having been in the county assembly.
Right.
And most of the times we knew if you're not getting paid your plenary session, if you're not attending plenary, you don't get paid. And in our county assembly, we had a very digital system that enabled the clerks and the administrators to be able to know that and to audit that process.
Masaki, what's your reading of this, the reviews there?
I think it's timely to my stand, and we are looking in terms of what we're experiencing as a country. We have a crippling economy, and a lot has to be saved in terms of going back to the economy so that we can be able to resuscitate the economy. And in our side as a coalition is how we can be able to have budgeted cost projects on how we're going to revive the economy. So with them cutting almost all that, the allowances, we are going to save almost to $1 billion that has to go back to the economy. So to me, I think it is timely, and this will be able to support some of the incentive that we are in. The case that we're going to form the government is going to support some of the incentives that we're going to have as a coalition.
All right, so Irene has it as, you know, it's taken away what would have encouraged people to be at the plenary. You see it as saving. Alan, how do you receive this news?
For me also, I tend to also agree with what Masaki had said. Number one is because elected leaders is just a profession like any other.
Right.
So with that angle, I also see like they should actually not be paid allowance because they are doing exactly what they are doing or what they are supposed to be doing.
Okay.
So for me, I look at it like why should it's like paying double? Because the salary that they are being paid is purposely for them to legislate. Then again, why should they also be paid allowance? So with that, I think I agree with the SRC.
Yes.
And also maybe lastly, looking at the economic situation of the country.
Right.
I also really agree because some of these things, if you look at the current economic situation of the country, then I think the decision of SRC is very good.
Irene, have people understood it from where? I mean, I don't know if you're protecting your interests if you make it into Parliament, the National Assembly as ODM nominee for the National Assembly. But are you saying then that things won't move in terms of policy, you know, formulation from the side of MPs because this, you know, plenary allowance has been taken away?
Okay, not really. It's not about protecting interest because, again, when you look at it, they've increased the salary.
Yes.
Again. And if you look at the difference of amounts, because usually when you're attending plenary, there's a certain limit up to how much you can gain. If you look at the difference is give or take about 20,000 shillings. Yeah. So it doesn't actually make any sense that you're increasing salary, then they shouldn't have increased salary in the first place. On the other hand, in terms of plenary session, this again is a matter of personal discipline.
Okay.
There are those people who will definitely, yes, attend and ensure that the interests of the people that they represent are catered for. But there are people we know that don't have that self-discipline. So they'll look at it like, I mean, why should I go and I'm not being paid for it?
Right.
Yeah, so that's where my concern actually sits.
Masaki,
because why increase that salary
if
you're cutting out the allowances? They shouldn't have increased the salary as well in the first place.
Okay, Masaki, sijui kama unataka kuongea because umenirushia macho hapo. Yes.
I think as we stand now as a country, we need to think about now the next step. I know this, we don't see maybe it coming out to light because it might be challenged because of the PSC.
Yes.
But they have stated clearly that it is on the new contracts that those who are coming in place, they cannot be able to challenge it because they are coming under new contract.
Yes.
But as a country, I think it is morally okay for them to, as new members, to be able to not to start opposing this when we're having a crippling economy.
Yes.
If they can be able to stand by what the mandate and what we are suffering as a country, we can be able to revive the economy so that we cannot have the push and back when they get into the new, once they are sworn in.
Okay.
I think that is something that we need to see coming to light.
All right.
Yes.
Let's get to the other, you know, headlining story in various the dailies, and this is on Rigathi. Jose, am I with you? Yeah, camera 7. Rigathi loses 200 million shillings dirty cash to state. That is the Daily Nation. I believe this is not headlined in the Star, but I believe it's there. But the Standard also headlines with it. Jose Pole, najua na kukimbiza kiasi hapo. Why Gachagua lost 202 million shillings to the state after 3 years of investigations and trips to the court. UDA presidential running mate will lose his millions in the wake of a ruling that the money from government agencies was acquired through corruption. And we'll discuss this at length in a bit because I have the full story that was done yesterday. But really just across the panel, Is this political witch hunt? Is it a coincidence that it's happening now? I'll start with you, Alan, down the panel.
First, Mark, for me, I'll view it as a profession, being a legal practitioner.
Yes.
I think institutions have independence.
Yeah.
And yes, the timing might be wrong, but I think it's a message, actually. It's sending a message, especially to the political class, or even other people who want to embezzle the funds of the public. So for me, I won't be able to say that it is a witch hunt. But again, the timing maybe probably, the judiciary need to be a bit careful. But again, when we look at it, even if it's election, do we mean that institutions need to stop working?
Okay. So it has to continue. The course, the judicial course has to continue. Yes. And Irene, even Raila said, in a way, to disassociate himself, he said, si mimi nilisema, ni mahakama. Now, at this time, very sensitive, just a few days after he gave the figures of his estate, let's call it that, witch hunt or coincidence or just the judicial course at play?
I mean, I'd say this is, the judicial process has timelines. So the fact that it happened at this particular time, they could call it witch hunt on their side, but I call it a coincidence, And the reason why I say this is a coincidence and a good one at that is that the UDA side have always spoken from both ends of their mouth. On one side, they say they support the courts. Remember during the BBI process when the courts voted against that. When the courts are saying that they have corrupt issues, then again they say that it's witch hunt.
Okay.
And it's very funny that they're always quick to say that the president is after them. The question is, did he or did he not gain or get the money that he shouldn't have?
Fraudulently.
Yes.
Masaki, on their end, it seems like it's just justice taking its course. How do you read it? And of course, we have to put it out there as a representative from the youth of Kenya Kwanza.
I think this is very clear. This is political witch hunt, and that has been rightly seen even before. Because you remember even last almost a week or so, we had almost another similar case about land over the same. So they have been trying to malign our side of divide so that they can be able to portray our candidates that these are people who are very corrupt, these are people who have been involved in land grabbing. All this, they're trying to see if they can be able to maybe influence in the outcome of this election.
Okay.
But to our side, we know that the people are very clear. Our people have become very civilized. They understand the institution, they understand how they're going to work. Because you cannot have only one side of divide that is going to be only being targeted in terms of corruption.
Okay.
All these institutions have been weaponized in terms of only viewing one side of divide as being corrupt. We are saying as Kenya Kwanza that we want the fight against corruption to be independent. We want the independence of the institution. We don't want people to make calls in the courts. We don't want to see people making calls to the DCI, to the EACC, to the DPP in terms of how we're going to influence the outcome of any judgment.
Yes.
We want the independence of the institution. That's why we have said in one of the key pillars in our manifesto is we're going to operationalize the judiciary fund. We are going to strengthen the institution so that they can be able to perform their mandate without fear or favor from any side of the divide.
So in a way, you'll revisit this?
Yes, we are going to do it.
But we'll get back to it because just after the paper review, we have the full package to put it into context for the viewer who probably missed this. And also today, and at least the message was sent out yesterday by KRA that there will be the reopening of Keroche. Again, this has been, Keroche breweries, this has been termed as another case of political witch hunt. We'll have a reaction to that in a bit. But another thing that is headlining here in the papers, first of all, there's the Taifa Leo, which we don't have the hard copy of, unfortunately. But yes, I can read here what they have put out. Wakazia Chebukati, Ruto, Raila washikana kutaka IEBC kufafanua kuhusu uchapishaji wa nakala mbili za matokeo ya urais. Basically, Form 34A and Form 34B. But yes, 2 copies of Form 34As. We'll have that story as well. But it is on all the main dailies. The Daily Nation headlining it as IEBC calls talks, and following the concerns that were raised after the latest batch of presidential ballot papers arrived. There were questions that were raised, especially from the Azimio side, and from that, we're 10 days away from the main polls, and people said there is probably some foul play here, but the IEBC wants to set the record straight. And yes, lady and gentlemen, to you, as this is playing out, is this IEBC playing safe in terms of let's not have this become a public discourse and back and forth? We have the experience there of IEBC and IG. Or is it just clarifying issues so that we don't go into the elections thinking that there's foul play? Alan, I'll start with you.
I think yesterday I watched your TV and the commissioner explained very well on the reason why they printed the Form 30, the forms. Yes. And the reason is to ensure that, one, all the presidential candidates receive the copies, because I think right now we have 4.
Yes.
Number 2, I think I'm privileged because at least I sit at the National Election Committee, yes, at the IEBC, representing young people. Yes. So there's a lot of preparedness that I have seen with IEBC.
Okay.
And again, he explained that one of also of the reason is that to ensure that at least the copies, the media receive them, the observers, which also my group actually has received a lot of observers, and many other things which yesterday I was able to see.
You see it as transparency, yes. Irene? Yeah. How do you receive this?
I see this as an introduction of an additional confusion by IEBC, because we have 10 days to the elections. So my question is, for all the polling stations that we have in this country, what time are they going to start printing this and ensure that this is also transported and gets to the different polling stations in good time?
Okay.
Yeah, because we are all aware that the ballot papers are ready in the country. So this, what time are this going to come in? Unless what Chebukati is telling us is that he has already gone ahead and had these forms ready. Okay. In which case, again, it sounds suspicious, because this is something that he should have had a discussion with the stakeholders, and by stakeholders I mean the people who are going to be on these ballot papers before he proceeds to do this.
Okay,
so for me, this is confusion.
Confusion.
Yeah.
Alan says transparency, being above board. Irene says this is adding confusion. Masaki, how do you read this?
I want to be on the balance side, the middle side of it, because I think also one thing that has come out clearly is that IEBC need also to improve in terms of its communication, yes, in terms of giving information to the public, and also all these presidential candidates, so that we can have reduced the level of animosity that we have in the country. Because this is a very critical time. We have almost 10 days to the election. They need to improve on their communication. Then another thing I also want to put it out is that we as Kenya Kwanza, we have very full confidence in terms of the performance of IEBC, and we know they are going to conduct a free and fair, credible election. On the side of Azimio, I think they've been trying all manner of ways in a way to hold the public, to hold the IEBC at ransom, so that they can be able to, I don't know, to play their tune. There's been a way in terms of how they're trying to play that card. Okay. So which is unfortunate, because we need to respect the institution.
Irene smirks at that.
I smirk at that because even the UDA presidential candidate is opposed to this process as well. And his reasons, our reasons, for the first time, I actually agree with William Ruto as well, because he raises the same concerns that our presidential candidate raises.
All right.
That why do we have this now?
Okay, they're seeking clarity as well as is everyone, and as it should be, just days to the polls. Let's look at something else a bit different that the Star has decided to focus on here, and they're looking at Raila versus Ruto, the Mudavadi-Kalonzo factor. They have many historical similarities, hope to resurrect careers. What do you see that is added on either side? First of all, Kalonzo, and then Mudavadi. I'll start with you. Do they bring some weight, to this political, debacle or, duel?
I think they do. And if you begin and looking at some of the polls being done, most of the regions, depending with who they're partnered with, yes, find that there's some weight that they bring. Because as much as we want to avoid talking about maybe people associating with the ethnicity or the tribes that you come from.
Yes.
This is a real factor.
Okay.
And many of the people tend to group themselves in a specific ethnicity or tribe.
All right. Okay. For you, Irene, is this these two from either divide? Are they, swaying factors in the vote, especially in terms of how the electorate warm up to either side?
I look at it from the perspective of the 2013-2017 election, and for me, the introduction of Mudavadi, in essence, for Raila never really made much difference, because with him or without him, either way, Raila was able to garner votes from the Western region.
Okay.
On the other hand, for Kalonzo, he comes in with a full basket of votes from his region. Mudavadi, for me, even the fact that he has never even been able to even secure a gubernatorial slot for his own party is a concern. I don't see him getting the 70% that he has been given as a target for him to be able to get anything from the UDA side. That is simply telling him, boss, you're not going to get anything because you're not going to get this 70%. Yeah. But Kalonzo, on the other hand, Kalonzo has come out as a kingpin for the Kamba people.
All right.
That is something that has been clear. The backlash, the array that came to us when Kalonzo was in or out of Azimio.
Sababu alisumbua.
Yes, alisumbua sana, alisumbua sana. On the other hand, you cannot tell from the Western community who is the outright kingpin.
Okay.
I wouldn't say Mudavadi is. Mudavadi just covers a small part of Western, and that's the Vihiga County. And Vihiga County is largely ODM.
Masaki, Kalonzo alisumbua, lakini Mudavadi hawezi, according to Irene. How do you...
I think with what we have witnessed before, I think there's very high significance in terms of the change. Azimio losing both Wetangula and Mudavadi has a very clear ramification to them on their side. And that has been witnessed before. Even the last almost 2-3 days ago, we had rallies in the sides of Western, and where we saw very clearly the Azimio presidential candidate clearly calling out on the supporters of Western that they have really let him down in terms of their support. So that is a clear significance that on the side of Kenya Kwanza, we have very clear support base from Western Kenya. And to us, we know both Mudavadi and Wetangula are going to meet the 70+% that we expect.
Kalonzo?
Kalonzo has no really significant support base in Ukambani, and that has been seen clearly before.
I don't know why Alan is laughing, but yes, keep
yes, because if you see in terms of what has been witnessed before, we are seeing candidates both in ODM and Wiper, both they're trying to see how they're going to get head-to-head in this campaign. So that shows that very well that he has no touch really with the people of Ukambani.
Okay.
And that will be witnessed in this election, both in both sides, both Western and Ukambani.
Right.
We are going to see a significant change in terms of voting patterns.
But you see, Kenya Kwanza can never talk about Mudavadi without the Wetangula factor. They come as a package. It has to be this extra saucer.
Maybe it's a tag team.
Yeah. On his own is nothing, man.
Okay, that's what you say. Alan, or did you have something to add when we were asking about Kalonzo na uzito wake?
I mean, if we look at critically without taking side, we can't ignore the Kalonzo factor. Okay. Kalonzo is a community kingpin. So, and I saw even Masaki when he was talking about Kalonzo and giving an explanation, he was also laughing. So,
but hakutosha Mboga kuwa the presidential running mate?
That is a subject of another day, but in terms of the votes...
that is not true. And I think that is very clear. You see, many people of Ukambani, and I happened to visit some of those sites, they had very full confidence in terms of Kalonzo being on the ballot as the presidential candidate. So that has not been seen. And you see, he came out very clearly saying that he'll be one of maybe the stupid people to support Raila for the third time. And actually that happened. So people have lost confidence in him as a leader. And that is going to be witnessed in the voting patterns, that, like I've said. So, my friend, I think you have to start now adjusting to the new realities on the ground.
Umetumiwa hiyo line ya Kenya Kwanza, my friend. So let's take a quick, if you want to take a quick breather from the politics of the day and just want to see how the corporate world is looking. Yes, Jose, karibia hapa kwa Business Daily. Nikianza kutetemeka mkono, usiogope. My health is good, and yes, all is well. So yes, what they've headlined with there, Jose Okosa, 680 hotels sold to Manzoni in a 1.2 billion deal. This is quite something. The billionaire owner of 680 Hotel in Nairobi City Center has sold a 3-star facility to Machakos-based Manzoni Lodges for an estimated 1.2 billion shillings. This is quite something because the CBD has ended up not being the most attractive spot for hotels. We saw what happened to Hilton because many hotels are opening, you know, in the vicinity outside the craziness within the CBD. So I don't know if you see this as, you know, helping the business community to see that there's hope within CBD, or it is basically just business being handled. Alan, I'll start with you.
I think first, just the same way you said, especially the business is going outside the CBD, and maybe probably the buying and selling of 680 will be able to again bring the CBD business back. Maybe that is how I can be able to see it.
I mean, even entertainment joints, you know, many of them have gone out of CBD. Irene, I'm not saying you comment on the entertainment joints, but the 680 Hotel, for you, does this come as good news, at least to help the business community to get confidence in doing biashara here in CBD?
For me, this is actually a concern because what we need to look at is the underlying factor of why was it sold in the first place. Is it because they're no longer able to do business and therefore they need someone to hold their hand? Or is it because they want to now enhance the business that this has? Because 680 for me has been a monumental structure in town. It's the place where people who didn't grow up in Nairobi would use it as one of the places where use this as a direction. And when you mirror this with what is going on with Hilton and so many other businesses in CBD, my concern then is, are we trying to say that the CBD is swiftly, slowly moving to a different section of this country? Is it moving to the upper hillside? Is it moving to the westland
Chinatown,
side?
what they
Chinatown,
call it.
yes. So what is going to happen to this CBD area? Soon, this area is going to be an old town for me, and that's a concern that we need to really look at.
Irene, Lakini, you are uptown. You were using 680 as the the marker. I used to use Kencom. I don't know about Masaki, but how do you see this? Is this good news for the business community?
I think it's not on the good side of us, because now we are looking in terms of the economy. What are the effects to the economy? And we have realized that some of these things have happened deliberately by the government not supporting the private sector. In terms of when we had these times of COVID, the government did not come out clearly in terms of giving support to the private sector. And that's why on our side as Kenya Kwanza, we have made a deliberate approach in terms of how we're going to revive the economy, how we're going to support the SMEs, how we're going to support the private sector, so that when we have the direct foreign investment in the country, it has to come with our own terms and to the benefit of our people. Those are the things that we're trying to look at.
Yes.
Just add on that. I think the country, the main reason why you are seeing this is because of the COVID-19 impact.
Yes.
And then 680 being sold, it has also been sold to another management. So it hasn't been closed.
Yes.
It's not like the way you can say Hilton is being closed and all other hotels. So for me, it won't be something that will worry me, because probably the Manzoni management will come and give good or new life.
Right. Okay, let's be hopeful and wish all the best to Manzoni. Other stories as well from the corporate sector, such as Fresh Twisters court shuts Mumia's Sugar. And this is just a few days after it was reopened. And so that's something also that will even feature on the campaign trail. Taxman dealers hold crisis talks on digital sales register crisis, and something else our business desk will also be looking at. But let's fold fold the papers for now and get into it, fold or rather roll up our sleeves for those who want to and get into it because there's a lot to address with 10 days to the elections. But I believe Diana, my Chebukati for the broadcast, wants me to take a quick breather so that we can get into it. If not, we can still continue. Diana, you could just confirm that to me. Yes, all right. She says that. My Chebukati says we take a break. Lazima nimtii. Stay with AM Live.
Ni furaha sana kwetu kwa sababu tunajua pasipokuwa na afya hata ukulima haiwezekani. Hata kazi ama biashara ama nini haitawezekana. Kwa hivyo tumeweka mambo ya afya mbele kwa sababu tunajua a healthy nation is a working nation.
You know that rush, that feeling to stay informed. Believe me, whether it's a beautiful story or one that throws you off, perhaps scary or charming, the truth will always find you. When you find us. Sign up today for the Nation e-paper. The truth, anywhere, anytime.
The Capital Markets Authority is the regulator responsible for supervising, licensing and monitoring the activities of market intermediaries. This includes the Securities Exchange, the Central Depository and Settlement Corporation and all the other persons licensed under the Capital Markets Act. CMA works with intermediaries and stakeholders to create a conducive environment for raising the level of investor awareness by focusing on the importance of knowledge, saving attitude and the best practices for investment in the capital markets.
With as little as 2,000 shillings, with as little as 10,000 shillings, you can become an owner of a publicly listed company, and you can earn dividends at the end of the year if they decide to issue dividends.
CMA collaborates with strategic partners to provide accurate information on all aspects within the capital markets, including regulations which facilitates investors with safe investment opportunities.
Capital markets are open to everybody. They accommodate you in the position you are in. Capital markets is very highly regulated. The issue of safety, ensuring you are dealing with parties who are regulated.
In line with one of its key strategies, CMA continues to support various capital rising products such as real estate investment trusts, bonds, as well as the various listing platforms, with emphasis on how investors and shareholders of listed companies are protected.
I'm able to monitor and know the safety of my money. And the other thing is that to know that I can always get my investment when I need that money.
This man, I know him so long. Down family wagwan. Join us each and every Saturday on your radio 96.3 Nation FM kuanzia saa 1 mpaka saa 4. I went on a sea last night to look for my woman. Then 10 p.m.
Manzejo tunaingia pale kwenye screens kuanzia 10 mpaka maidha na hii sato mtu wangu. Vile unatuchekia hapa hivi bado tutakuwa alone, tutakuwa na mse fulani anajitanga the machine killer himself man. DJ
Not about the machine killer, the conky master right here. Alafu hii sato ni kubad mse hosted by Shix Kapienga alongside DJ Mo. Jump down live on your screen NTV from 10 p.m. till we are done. Conky Kumalo. Yes sir. I step foot in Switzerland.
Welcome back to AM Live. Join the conversation online with hashtag AM Live NTV. I'm joined with a youthful panel. It's Youth Perspective Day every Friday, and it is looking at 10 days to the elections. What are the concerns from a youthful perspective? Of course, the youth representing different stakeholders in the political field. And today I'm joined by Alan Chacha, who's right next to me, the Executive Director of Universities and Colleges Students' Peace Association of Kenya. And next to him is Irene Mayaka, ODM nominee to National Assembly. Utatuambia how else you want to be acknowledged, but let's go current. And I guess congratulations on the nomination, and all the best. Hopefully it will tutakuwa tunakuita mheshimiwa very soon. And yes, I don't know if Samuel Masaki umepata nomination yoyote, but you represent the Youth for Kenya Kwanza presidential campaign. You're the coordinator actually for the Youth for Kenya Kwanza presidential campaign, and have been on the both have been on the campaign trail. So a grace to you. I know it is countdown for the campaign and countdown to the ballot. And let's start first of all with what happened yesterday, and some received it as very good news in terms of the truce between the IEBC and the police. There has been a back and forth about the arrest of Venezuelans at the JKI airport who were found with some electoral materials that they ended up being these IEBC stickers that were meant to label the Kim's kits. And so it seems that it's all good now. So let's see how it played out yesterday and discuss that.
No longer uneasy around each other was the message beaming in the faces of the IEBC officials and top-ranking officers of the National Police Service. Sources tell NTV that the truce between the two agencies came after President Kenyatta called them to order, urging them to drop the fights that were threatening to derail the preparations for the August polls.
Going forward, we have committed to work together. And if there's any issue, we shall discuss.
NPS is and remains committed to partner and support IBC.
The DCI and the IEBC had been at each other's necks over the election stickers, which were impounded in the custody of 3 Venezuelans. Without detailed explanations, the two bodies have also ended their fight on that front.
With regard to investigation revolving around electoral stickers recently imported into the country, I wished to inform Kenyans that the matter has been resolved.
The issues about the stickers, as the IG has said, that has been resolved.
Still, there have been concerns over the integrity of electoral technology after the IEBC claimed that phones, gadgets and passwords belonging to the Venezuelans were confiscated. But IEBC Commissioner Boya Molu, speaking at a separate function, moved to calm the fears, but also didn't shy from questioning the claims by DCI boss George Kinoti that the Venezuelans flew into the country with invalid passports.
We all know IBC don't control immigration. And one should ask, how did those guys get a visa to travel to Kenya from Panama, pass through Turkey, land in Kenya, cleared by immigration, then they are arrested outside, and then IBC is asked, why are these people here without invalid passport?
The press conference at Jogo House had the semblance of a peace photo op, and none of the officers or commissioners accepted to field questions from the media. And even though the truce has brought calm and reassurance to the public, it has raised more questions on the fate of the Venezuelans. The IEBC is expected to field more questions on Friday over its preparedness, with just less than 2 weeks to the general election. Sydney Chazima, NTV.
So I'll start with you, Irene, and no pun intended. This makeup, is it made up or is it real?
For me, I would say it looks real, yeah. Okay. Because in the first place, as a country, these are two very important integral institutions when it comes to the elections. We don't want a situation where IBC and the police force are fighting, because we need IBC to conduct the elections, and we need the police to ensure that not only are they giving security to IBC, but that they're also giving security to the people. So when we have these two institutions already starting to fight, and we have a country that has had a background of election periods where we had election violence in this country, then for me it becomes something that we should be concerned about. But when we see that they're actually making up, it's a good thing. And that brings me to the other day, because now this becomes an egg to William Ruto's face, because he's the one who was hurling insults at Kinoti, and Kinoti was doing his job. Yeah, so that's another situation where we need to see.
I mean, they seem to be apologizing for how they did their job and how it played out in the public, gallery.
And which is good, because it takes a great man to actually apologize.
So if you bring up Ruto in terms of how he addressed Kinoti, it's within his rights as one of the main contenders to criticize what Kinoti is doing, which they have apologized for.
It is within his rights to criticize, but you can't go criticizing as a leader, as someone who wants to be the president of Kenya, by hurling insults at someone who is...
Oh, it's the way he went at it.
Yes, it's the way he went at it. It was too aggressive for me. I don't think that was the right way to go at it. Yeah, these are things that you should come to the table, sit and discuss about. Because as we said earlier, we are in a very sensitive period in our country right now.
Masaki, she says it wasn't good how it played out from the Kenya Kwanza leader. But first of all, before you get to that, is this optics, politics, amatuni tricks?
I think for me it clears out and also revives the public confidence in terms of these two institutions, because these are independent institutions. As much as there is interdependence of this institution, there is also how they're going to work together in terms of having to give us a very credible election, and one of them providing security. But actually it has also raised more question than answers, because we are asking ourselves that if you're raising the issues of that we having individuals who came to the country with maybe expired passports, then how are they cleared? How are they cleared by the immigration? How are they given the visas? So this actually shows also how these institutions are actually working. How many people have we had in the country who have actually been in the country illegally because maybe they were cleared and they were given visas without proper checks and all of these things. So it is actually one of the ways that we are trying to see that if this institution, they can be able to perform their mandate without being influenced, without being have to be checked in their performance, then we can have proper performance of the institution.
So you received, well, as the leader of the youth wing of Kenya Kwanza campaign coordination, you received this truce that was displayed yesterday. You received it well.
Yes, we received it well because we want to have a very credible election. We want to have, we don't have to have more disputed election, because this actually raises more issues when we have the election and the outcome of the election. Some of these things will play out after that. We had this issue that were raised by the DCI, we have this issue that were raised by IEBC. So it is important for them actually to work together, and this is a clear display that going forward, they are going to have to work together. And we have actually raised the same issues before, that let's have proper communication by IEBC in terms of giving them information, giving information to the police, giving information to the Inspector General of the Police that actually we are going to receive this and this goods, we are going to receive these visitors, they are going to sit us and this and this. That also helps to improve the confidence of this institution, because if you have a situation whereby we'll have things coming to the country without proper checks and balances, then it will raise more questions than answers.
Okay.
Yes.
And to what she said, it wasn't good the way Kenya Kwanza leader, the deputy president, addressed.
We have our own rights as Kenya Kwanza and also as them as NEO. We have also to raise issues that the way that the DCI played out this was not effective. They have more way of how they can be able to sit down as an institution and be able to harmonize all these things, instead of them playing it out rightly in the public that they are having fights. That reduces the confidence of this institution.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And I know you are all out for peace, being the representative for the Peace Association of Kenya for the universities and colleges and college students. So when this happened yesterday, how did Alan react?
I think it's a good gesture. Number one, because you can only be able to achieve great milestone by discussing and conversation.
Okay.
Number two, I think previously we've seen independent officers fighting each other, which should not be the case. And I think IG or the National Police coming together with IEBC and discussing and then coming out and telling Kenyans that indeed there are conversations that are happening.
Yeah.
For me, I think that is what we should adopt, and all other stakeholders who are involved in this election should actually embrace that.
All right.
So it's a positive milestone, August.
Irene, anything to add on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because there's one more institution that has not been factored in this whole process, and that institution is the immigration process of it. Because Kinoti and his team and the police would come in at the prosecution level. Before it gets to that, then immigration process also needs to tell us how did they clear these people. Because by the time this is handed over to the police, it is at the point where there's a suspicion that has been raised. So that is another institution also that needs to come out and make it very clear that what happened exactly. Because Kinoti could be blamed for things that, for him, he was doing his work in terms of coming in because a suspicion has been raised. But for this other institution, what went on? So that we know that clearly, from IEBC to immigration to this getting to the police, what exactly happened.
But you do agree, as has been raised by one of the commissioners, it's not on IEBC to clear people, immigration-wise, to make it into the country. So they would absolve themselves of any blame in terms of how these foreigners made it into Kenya, if there were questions about their papers? They're not in charge of immigration.
Yeah, they're not in charge of immigration.
Okay.
That I agree with them. But then again, also at immigration level, when suspicions are raised, the person who invites that person in the first place would then be asked a question or two in terms of this person that you are allowing to come into this country. What was the reason? What was the process? What did you know about them? So that is where IEBC would come in.
And I guess from the commissioner's side, at least when he brought it up, it was, at what point do you raise the questions, whoever is involved? Is it at the point that they're leaving the country of origin, or is it when they arrive? Because, I mean, there's paperwork that needs to be cleared, and IEBC saying, hiyo si yetu.
But then again, raising the question, it's never at... There's never a give or take or at which particular point it needs to happen.
Okay.
The question will be raised at the point where a suspicion is noted.
Okay.
Yeah, so it can be at the entry point, it could be at the very beginning of the process, or when they are already here.
Okay.
Yeah, so the question will be raised at whichever point.
Masaki, and then Alan.
I think the whole point is very clear in terms of how we receive people and how we send invitation. There were issues they were issued with visas. So I think that is the point whereby these issues with immigration, they would have even written back to the person who had the invite to them that we are having this problem, that the people you are inviting in the country, they don't have the valid passports. So I think that's why we are saying that this would have been an in-house discussion between the Kinoti, between the immigration, that well, we are having these people in the country. How are they issued the visas? Then the issue now can be now asked to the person who had the invitation for these people to come to the country, and which already was cleared out by IEBC. So I think it is only important. What they have done is important, but this will have been done before. If they had a discussion, what they have done yesterday, it will have actually reduced the animosity that we have in the country, considering we have 10 days to the elections.
Okay. And I mean, from what they say, is it important in your view that immigration side of things speak on this clearly?
Yes, I think it's very important. And just the same way we had said initially is that I think all the stakeholders involved in this election should be able to sit and discuss. There are some things that before even making them public, you can't be able to solve them internally. And because you find that some issues raise even temperature, we have 10 days to the election. So if you keep on raising things that probably will raise the temperature or unnecessary things, we find that, or they raise more suspicion, I think for me that won't work well. But with the direction that yesterday they took, for me I think it's a good direction, which would be actually be embraced.
And I believe they've now agreed to deal with things in the back room first before it plays out in the public gallery, because it has the effect of either eroding or buying the hope and the reassurance of the electorate in the process going forward. Let's get into something else that is raising red flags, raising eyebrows, getting people asking questions. And this is on the fortunes of the deputy presidential candidate of Kenya Kwanza, and that is Rigathi Gachagua, and he has vowed to appeal a High Court judgment that has ordered him to forfeit 202 million shillings that had been frozen in his accounts over a corruption case against him. The court ruled that Gachagua was unable to explain how he acquired the funds from government agencies. However, Gachagua has termed the judgment as a political witch hunt.
Arambe!
Kenya Kwanza Alliance Deputy Presidential Candidate Rigathi Gachagua's reputation is on the spot. Gachagua will now have to surrender 200 million shillings to the Assets Recovery Agency. The funds had been frozen in 2020 after Gachagua was dragged to court over a corruption case where the prosecution argued the funds were proceeds of crime. Gachagua had admitted to have received the funds from government agencies and entities through the award of contracts. But the court has now ruled that he has failed to provide any proof of having any contract with the state. In the court case, the Assets and Recovery Agency contended that Rigathi had used Gene Enterprises, a business entity and account, as a channel for money laundering. Gachagua has, however, vowed to appeal the judgment, terming it political witch hunt.
Mimi wanajaribu kunihangaisha. Walinishitaki, wakaniweka polisi, wakanifungia. Leo wanataka kuninyang'anya pesa yangu. Mimi naambia Uhuru Kenyatta, pesa chukua. Mimi nikizaliwa nilikuja hii dunia bila chochote, nikiondoka nitaondoka bila chochote.
The Mathira MP now claims his friendship with Deputy President William Ruto is the source of his tribulations.
Hata ukininyang'anya pesa, hata ukinifunga, mimi na watu ya Mount Kenya hatuwezi wachana na William Samoei Ruto. Tutang'ang'ana na wewe na watu yako mpaka huyu William Ruto aingie State House.
Documents filed in court showed that within 7 years, Gachagua received 5.8 billion shillings, which included funds from companies or business entities providing services to ministries, state agencies, and county governments. Vincent Odur, NTV.
I'll start with you, Masaki. This comes just days after he declared his estate and said he has 800 million in worth, in terms of his worth. And then a few days later, there's this ruling that you can't account for how you made the 202 million, so you should give it back or just surrender it, forfeit, basically. Again, to the question, was he set up in this? Amesetiwa?
Of course, this is playing out clearly. Even the public domain, they understand this is political witch hunt, and that we have stated it very clearly. Because you have to understand that when he was doing business, he was not a public officer. He was not a civil servant. He was just doing his own business before he joined the parliamentary seat. So it is playing out clearly, the public, that there is a clear way on one side of divide where they want to portray the other side of political divide, that these people are corrupt, but that has not worked. And we are also telling them that is not going to work, even in, considering we are 10 days to election. We know there are so many things that have happened before. They are trying to drag many of our people in Kenya Kwanza, in trying to malign their names and drag them into the dirt so that we cannot have the public confidence. But that has clearly played out because there has been no clear indication that the fight against corruption is real, and the fight against corruption is only looked in terms, is targeted people who are on the Kenya Kwanza side. And that's what we have said, that if we have to fight corruption, let it be objective. Okay. Let the institution do their work. Let them have their own mandate to do investigation, because we have had investigations that have happened before. They have reached in the court and they have not even played out clearly in terms of evidence that clearly this money was stolen, or clearly this money was actually, this person did business with the government. So, and that's why we have said that if we have to, there's clearly weaponization of institution to fight political opponents to achieve certain directions and certain objectives, and also trying to aid those in this other political divide that is the Azimio, so that they cannot be able to portray clearly. We have had so many cases we have raised. We have raised the issues of KEMSA scandals. We have raised the issues of the Pandora's Papers. They have stated clearly, they were given timelines. They gave out the timeline themselves that we are going to have 21 days and we are going to have an outcome. What has happened with those things? Okay. So clearly, this is political witch hunt, and we know very well there are so many things they have planned in terms of how they are going to distract us, but we are very objective to the mandate that we have. We already laid out our clear mandate. Our manifesto is out. We have already elaborated it in how we are going to change the economy of this country. We know they are all towards in terms of changing the constitution to achieve certain objective and of trying to accommodate some other people in the government. But we have made it very clear that this time or this election is going to be about the economy of our country and how we're going to revive it and how we're going to support our agriculture, how we're going to support our SMEs moving forward, and also helping the education sector.
Okay, Irene, you said earlier this is clearly not political witch hunt, but looking at it from a political strategy standpoint, in terms of him coming on to the debate and saying what he had to, do you see a setup in how this played out? Because a few days later then this ruling comes up after he has said he has 800 million in terms of his worth.
I don't see it as setup, and even before I respond to you, I just wanted to remind Masaki that Gachagua is someone who's been a public servant for a very long time. He was, I mean, this guy was a DO even before he started going into business. The reason why I don't see this as witch hunt, and actually what Gachagua was doing yesterday, talking to his people, was emotional blackmail, because I don't know in which court in this country where Uhuru is a judge. It's not Uhuru who gave that ruling. It's the judiciary. Okay. This is a matter that has been in court from the year 2020, and this is where I have a concern that I think needs to be addressed. The fact that judiciary doesn't have enough resources to be able to bring matters to book faster than they should. The fact that it's taken 2 years to have this matter addressed. It's been 3 years, it is, 3 years actually, and we now have a ruling on it. Coincidence? Yes, it is a coincidence. But then again, the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, they keep crying foul and they keep crying witch hunt, that their people are being targeted. But it's literally like looking into a sack of potato that has so many bad potatoes inside. You keep pulling out one after another, corrupt people in that space of theirs. I mean, it's not the fault of Kenyans that they have so many people who have corrupt issues, who have issues related to not paying tax, criminal issues as well. It's a clean slate for Azimio side? I mean, give me examples of people who... The people who are with you? Well, I mean, we have Waluke. I mean, Waluke came the other day. Came the other day, but came the other day, but again, I'm not saying we are defending him in any way. Okay. If he has a matter in court that needs to be addressed, and my political party leader, incoming president, was very clear yesterday. He said, if there are any people on his side who have who have corrupt cases, corrupt matters that need to be addressed, he will not feel sorry for any of them. Okay. Yeah. Rather than the fact where you see, I mean, Gachagua is being accused of 200M. If I was him, I would say, if that is not my money, or if this is a matter, then let it get to the very end of it. Okay. Rather than saying, oh, this is witch hunt because, oh, they want Mount Kenya. That's emotional blackmail for me. Okay. And then even for Ruto to stand right next to him and defend that, knowing very well that even him, he has so many matters that he needs to address. It just looked like a pack of thieves who are, you know, supporting each other. All right, okay, let's not throw insults. You criticized Ruto talking about Kinoti and insults. Let's not throw insults. Unless we have evidence, we can produce in court. Let's do that. But Alan, mtu wa peace, since we need someone here. How does this paint the judiciary? I'm not saying they're playing or they're holding fort for any side, but that it's playing out now, it's happening now, it seems to be favoring one side of the political divide, especially as a narrative goes that, you know, Kenya Kwanza has corrupt leaders. And no one is clean in terms of the political field. But how does this make the judiciary look in terms of the theatrics in the political field right now? Yeah,
Mark, for me, first I'd like to look at it like institutions, first of all, having their own independence, just like the same way I said, because it's election. Do we say that then other institutions should just stand and wait until election is over?
Well, the ODPP has, kind of stopped on, pursuing some cases because it says it needs to focus on elections and it will pick up, it will revisit after the elections. Okay. Some institutions have decided to do that.
But you know very well how critical the judiciary is.
Right.
And especially the matter, issue of corruption is not something to joke with. Then also from another side, of course, the timing might not be okay, especially putting into consideration the kind of a person that is Rigathi. But again, for me, I won't focus more on the timing, but rather I'll focus on the substance, whether Rigathi was able to really prove that he received those money
from government agencies doing
yes,
business
for what purpose?
Okay,
that is the question that we should be asking ourselves.
Right.
And then I think there are avenues for appeal, just in case maybe probably you are not satisfied with the decision.
There's recourse.
There are still other places that you can be able.
But let's bring up something in terms of political witch hunt or not, because the case of Keroche Breweries, Madam Tabitha Karanja, the head there, has said that she's been targeted, especially with her back and forth with KRA. They are to reopen today at 11 o'clock. That should be good news to them. But business has been stalled in many aspects, and it comes after or during a season that she declared support for UDA. Does that come as coincidence for you too as well as we go down the panel?
I think on issues of Keroche, for me, I really think local business should be encouraged because there are a lot of people who have suffered because of that.
Yes.
There are a lot of people who have been employed by the business. So for me, I look at it in that angle, and this is where I fully support in terms of reopening of Keroche.
Right.
Because I feel there are families that currently are suffering. The economy, even the economy right now, some of the issues, you'll find that some of us, we are struggling because, money have to come and you must have circulation. Okay. So for me, I look at it in that perspective.
Irene, the reopening of Keroche, it should have happened earlier because there's a court ruling, but it seems to be happening now. Maybe there's pressure to follow judicial direction.
For me, it's a question of for Keroche Industries, and this is personal responsibility to the person at the helm of it. The question is, were they or were they not paying taxes in the first place? Yeah, because the taxman has a duty to collect tax. And this is not just about even them being a politician. Even for yourself, if you don't pay tax in time, if you don't do your tax returns in time, the taxman will still come at you.
But that was addressed, and they got to an arrangement and an agreement on how to settle, but then they were shut down again despite a court order. So that was addressed, and then that played out. Surely you'd understand why Tabitha would think, hang on, am I being punished for my political leanings?
But KRA is not a political institution. Again, if there was delays in terms of ensuring that that process is fast-tracked and is done at the correct time, then that you can't blame the political process for that. For instance, you can't blame like Azimio for that or Kenya Kwanza for that. Yeah, if it's a coincidence and it's affecting them, again, it's not a good thing because as my friend here says, it affects a lot of other people as well who have to feed their families and all that. Yeah, so for me that's a concern in terms of our institutions. When you're doing the process of clearing someone, should it be fast-tracked? What procedure should it take? And can it be done in such a way that then that person doesn't have to fall back and say that this is political witch hunt, and it's the reason why I'm being affected. Institutions need to be independent in terms of what they do.
All right. Yeah. For you, Masaki, the KRA Commissioner, Legal Services and Board Coordination sent out the press saying, or at least the statement saying that the factory will be reopened via court direction, and this is at 11 o'clock today. A little too late, and do we need more sobriety in this?
I think as Kenya Kwanza, we have been very clear in terms of on what we stand for. And we are fighting one of the biggest establishments called the state capture. And that has been clearly, outrightly seen in terms of how they have been able to weaponize this institution in terms of on our side. Because if you're on the other side, when she was on the other side, we had had meetings when she had sessions with, photo sessions with the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. She was a very good business person. She was doing well. But now when you cross to this other side, now all the things that has, if you've done business, if you have engaged in any business, if you are not, maybe you have delayed, maybe in submission of your returns, then you are targeted specifically to achieve certain objective. And that's why we have said as Kenya Kwanza that we want the institutions that are mandated by the Constitution to perform their mandate, to do it independently without fear or favor. And that's why we have said that in an event like DCI, in an institution like DCI, right, that we need to empower them. They need to have their own accounting officer so that they do not report to the executive in terms of what they need to, in terms of the support. Because they say the one who is giving you, the one who is funding you has a lot of control in terms of your performance. So that we have said that we need the independence of this institution. As much as there's interdependence, let them be able to allow to do their mandate, to perform their mandate without being interfered with. Because we are having a problem. If Keroche had a sit down with the KRA and they had their own arrangement in terms of how they're going to settle this, then it is clearly, then afterwards they receive another letter that they are going to be shut down. Then today we're having another letter that this is after there's a court order to KRA that they need to reopen Keroche. So it is clearly that this institution, they are being driven to achieve certain narrative. And that's what we are trying to say, that as Kenya Kwanza, we do not support such kind of approach. All right. Yes.
Let's take a break at this point, Masaki, Irene, and Alan. When we get back, Form Ni 34A, it's been contentious and it's going to be discussed today with presidential candidates and the IEBC. So we'll be addressing that with our youthful panel. Give us the youth perspective in a moment. Stay with AM Live.
The Communications Authority of Kenya, CA, regulates the broadcasting industry, promoting development of local content and ensuring responsible use of broadcasting platforms for national good. The Communications Authority of Kenya, opening your world.
Can you hold me? Hold me, please. Hold me, please. Please hold me. Hold me tight.
But nothing is happening yet.
Shut up.
Mommy, you said that the two of us will always be happy, but the only thing I feel now is sadness, and you don't even care about that. You know what? I'm never going to forgive you for this. Never!
It had to be you.
I feel so at one here. I should bring this Zen into my house.
When it comes to all things paint, we've got you covered. We know paint. Duracoat. Ask the experts.
To get Sina Uhofu by Eric Smith, dial *811
#851#. Skiza, non-nation.
On this week's episode of The Best Of, we free up your schedule to give you a spa day.
This is an award-winning spa.
We pride in ourselves and we believe we are #1 spa in Kenya.
As we experience luxurious serenity, both indoors and outdoors.
This is a kahawa massage.
Yes.
And I go through the hard work of being pampered by the best.
Hey, all those burdens just melting away.
All is well on The Best of Spas.
Get peace of mind and protect the ones you love with the power of Dettol Bar Soap. It cleans and protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. So no matter what type of mum you are, trust Dettol.
Welcome back. Laughing a bit because during the break we've been talking about exes and people are not taking on exes in terms of the political divide, but I'll leave that to the break and not put it on air. But Friday is a day many people ask or say toa form, and IEBC seems to have released more forms than would be acceptable for some of the political players. This is what I'm talking about. Let me be serious for a moment here. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is today scheduled to meet with the 4 presidential candidates on the uproar over the printing of 2 sets of Form 34As. IEBC plans to clear the air over the issue during the meeting to be held today at the Bomas of Kenya. On Wednesday, the Azimio la Umoja coalition wrote to the IEBC raising concern over the printing of the statutory results declaration forms. The Commission has, however, dismissed claims that this could be a part of a scheme to rig the elections.
The Commission's attention has been drawn to the concerns raised by Azimio la Umoja over the printing of 2 separate Form 34As, and now IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati has called for a meeting to be held on Friday between the Commission and the 4 presidential candidates. In a letter to the presidential candidates, IEBC noted the concerns raised by representatives of presidential candidates and has invited them to the Bomas of Kenya for a consultative meeting. According to the political parties, IEBC printed 2 books of Form 34As without informing them, and the reason given upon inquiry was insufficient. The Azimio Coalition Party wrote to IEBC yesterday, hours after inspecting the arrival of ballot papers at JKIA, raising the issue which was today echoed by their main political rivals on the UDA side. However, at a different event with religious leaders, IEBC Commissioner Molu Boya rubbished claims that could be a plan to mess with the election. Molu holds that the questions might have arisen from the trust deficit between IEBC and politicians.
Yes, it is true we are printing 2 books and there's a reason and stakeholders are aware. Political parties are aware. 1 book has only 6 copies of result forms, which are carbonated. You only write the one on top, the rest duplicate. It's carbonated. 1 copy, the original, is for the returning officer in the constituency. So presiding officer carried physically to the returning officer for tabulation and collation. 1 copy is put in the ballot box and locked there. 1 copy is pinned on the classroom door, the polling station, for any member of public to see. Then other copies, if there are 6, now we are left with 3. We have how many presidential candidates? 4. So 1 will not get. So if you don't print the second book, how will you give him or her? We have to print extra book, which again will be written the same way, and then 1 copy is given to that candidate. We have asked media to do their tally. Where will they get the result from? If there's a media agent in the polling station, he or she is given a copy. If Mulei and other observer groups want to have a copy, we will give them. So to provide for everybody, we ensure that there is enough copies of result forms. So if it can't fit in 1 book, because carbonation can only go a certain number of pages, beyond which it's invisible. So we don't want to give people something that is not visible. So because of that, the technical people, when they are doing a specification, they don't go beyond 6 pages because it will be too faint for anybody to see. That is the reason why there is second book.
IEBC holds that it is ready to oversee a fair, credible and verifiable election amidst noise surrounding their level of preparedness and transparency. Yoma Sampao, NTV.
And as you've heard there, the IEBC Commissioner Boya Molu, beg your pardon, saying yes, they are printing the 2 copies of Form 34As. So first of all, Irene, why the fuss? Of course, it is the right of any political player at this moment to raise a red flag on anything that they see suspect. Why the fuss? Just for the viewer who doesn't quite understand what's going on.
The first is because for me, and just listening to the commission explaining, this is like a knee-jerk reaction for me because from the get-go, IBC knew they had 4 presidential candidates, yeah? And they knew that they needed to accommodate and ensure that each and every one of them is given equal treatment. By the time they're printing the ballot papers and when they had the first initial meeting with the presidential candidates, and they did mention to them what was going to be available, why didn't this come up then? Yeah? Why is this coming up after this has been printed, they have been sent to the country, we have 10 days to go, nobody had information on this, so it's like, because they've already done the printing as they've mentioned. Right. Yeah. So my question is, what if when they meet the presidential candidates later today and all 4 of them decide and say, we don't want it? So what happens then? Yeah. I
guess we'll have to see. But I mean, he's explained the main reason of, printing the extra is to make sure that every presidential candidate has a copy, or at least their representative. That's why they're doing it. Like, they're not trying to even hide and say we're not printing it. It is happening because we want to make sure everyone gets a copy.
For me, what I'd want to see, especially in the meeting that they're going to have with the presidential candidates, is that the legal aspects and departments for each of these candidates actually ask them to demonstrate what they're talking about. Because let's not get surprises on the election day after the people are done with the voting and the counting process is going, and then now we have to see those forms. Can we get an actual demonstration of how this is going to look like? And I'm hoping one of them is going to challenge to have that seen today, so that we don't get surprises on the last day, because this is something new that has never been experienced in the country before. All right.
Do you buy into the explanation given by the IEBC in terms of why this has been done? Because as it's raised, there is the question of credibility, because in the public eye, and even depending on how we frame it as media, then there are questions about, are they planning to rig? But they're not hiding it. They're saying it's happening, and this is why it's happening. Do you feel they've handled it in the best way in terms of communicating this to the political players and the electorate?
Yes, Mark. For me, I'll first of all look at the big picture in terms of why print.
Okay.
Why print, I think the Commissioner Boya has really explained very well, because we need a free, fair, and credible election.
Okay.
The main reason why they have printed this is to ensure that all the agent, that is the presidential agent, receive a copy. All the media, of course, you'll be doing your own tally. That is, has been explained very well. Receive a copy. All the observers also receive a copy. I don't think there's any better approach of doing this than that. But the only thing maybe probably is maybe that probably in the near future IBC need to improve is probably maybe before printing they could have communicated to the presidential aspirant. Okay. But in terms of the impact and why there was a lot of need of printing it. Because again, if they could have printed just copies that are not enough, again the same aspirant, presidential aspirant and other people will have complained. So for me, I think it has convinced me. I'm more than convinced.
Masaki, kulikuwa na sababu ya kupuliza firimbi on this one. It seemed to actually have really come, especially from the Azimio side, the concern, but it's shared across the board. Do you see a concern?
Yes, I think there's actually very valid reasons to why these issues have to be raised, because both sides of the divide, they want to avoid those issues that can't be raised maybe after election.
Right.
We are avoiding those contestations that might happen after the election. And I think the only thing that maybe the IEBC need to come out clearly is to do a lot of these consultative meetings with both the political players and also in terms of the dissemination of the information from their side of the institution. Because if these issues are being raised now, I think they ought to have had a meeting with these political players and explain to them that we are going to print these books, the two books, the one book and the second book, and this is the reason why you're going to do it. Okay. They ought not to do it, then sit down with them and now explain to them that we have done this because of this and this. It raises more questions than answers in terms of the credibility of this election.
Okay.
And both sides, they're trying to see if the IEBC can come out clearly in terms of involve them and also involve other institutions in terms of the dissemination of information, and also in terms of involvement of all the stakeholders in this election.
All right, we'll get to whether it's being sensational, talking about this being a plot or ploy to rig the elections. But just to explain a bit for the viewer, and actually I needed to check out what it really means, what its significance is. That is Forms 34A, and I borrow from an article that was done by one of the great political reporters, John Ngirachu, who is unfortunately isn't live in the newsroom right now, but still in the communications sector, so shout out to him. He did this article for the East African Wednesday, August 9th, 2017, and in part of it he explains under the elections regulations, Form 34A is a first form used to tabulate results of the presidential election. It is filled by the presiding officer after the counting of votes at the polling station. It contains details of the votes garnered by each candidate and then details the total number of registered voters in that station, the rejected votes, the objected ones, the disputed and the valid ones. The candidates or their agents are then required to sign and ratify the contents of that form that they are correct. Form 34A is then handed over to the constituency returning officer, who then fills Form 34B. It is used for the collation of presidential election results, and on it is indicated the polling station, the code, the name of the station, the number of registered voters, what each candidate garnered, and the number of valid votes cast. So hoping that has clarified why it is a big deal now being raised by the political players and why the IEBC has called for a meeting with the 4 presidential candidates at the Bomas of Kenya today. But is it being sensational, talking about kuna kamchezo hapa, kuna game inachezwa, rigging claims? Do you see it sensational or it's valid?
I think this is a very valid questions that are being asked. I don't think there's any ploy by, like we have said, we have fully have confidence with the IEBC in terms of how they're going to conduct this election. But also, as much as we have the confidence with the IEBC, there are things that we need to have clarification. Like you have said, we have pointed out fingers in terms of their side, how they need to improve in terms of their engagement with the political players, and also in terms of how they're going to disseminate the information to the public and to these political players, so that we don't have an event whereby we're also receiving visitors, we're also receiving forms, we're receiving even these ballot papers without informing the stakeholders who are going to participate.
Communication. Alan, kuna kachumvi kameongezwa hapo by whoever is raising concerns about rigging plans with this 30.
For me, I see no kauchumvi because IEBC is very clear. It's actually accepting and saying, yes, we are printing, or we've printed, but the main reason why we've printed is this and this and this. So with that, I'm not persuaded to believe that kuna kauchumvi kokote.
Irene, you say there's need for clarity and even illustration to each candidate and representative who appears before the IEBC today at the Bomas of Kenya. But how do you read the questions of rigging? Because you know how that reflects to the electorate.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, we are a country that has experienced very sad situations in terms of our election process in the past. And so IEBC as the referee has to come out very clearly the rules of the game, what else needs to be done, and this is a factor of lack of communication. Because had IEBC communicated before that this is happening, and like I said, they knew from the get-go that we have 4 presidential candidates, before the printing was done, they should have communicated.
Right.
So that is where the issue comes in, because why didn't you communicate? Or is there something else? Why are you hiding something? Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
All
where
right.
the concerns are coming from.
All right. Thank you for that. And we'll see what comes out of that meeting today with the presidential candidates or representatives of the same, because we know the main ones where they'll be in terms of the campaign, and they cannot lose even a minute from the campaign trail right now. It is a last lap of it. So we'll see how that plays out later on today. One of the big stories we're following. There's something that has come up, and it's in the last day or two, and I'm sure we are all connected, and we have smartphones. Of course, so in terms of there's this video that's been doing rounds, and I want us to play it just to clear the air, because where there are questions, we need to clarify. And this is, the leader of Azimio, Raila Odinga, talking about religion and what share that Christianity and treatment Christianity has received in Kenya over time. And just to clear the air, because it's being spread, and even if you see it on WhatsApp, it's forwarded many times. So you can't quite forward it to as many people as possible. And this is we're in the age of anything can be spread online. I don't know if you've seen it, but if you've not, and for the viewer who hasn't, let's play this and see what comes out.
Haya yote manake wakati wazungu walikuwa na hako hapa, dini ya Kristo ilipelekwa juu zaidi kushinda zingine. Na hiyo kasumba bado imebaki mpaka siku ya leo. Tutaimaliza. Katiba yetu imesema ya kwamba Kenya is a secular society.
So let's clear the air. In fact, someone sent that to me, and I'd already received it and said, hey, if this is what, Raila Odinga Azimio is standing for, then they're worried. And there's no need for anxiety if we need to put context to it. Because, it has been said, Kenya is majority Christian, 80% Christian. People have disputed that figure. But as Raila Odinga says there, it is acknowledged as a secular nation or society, and there needs to be, perhaps you'd call it, balance in the religions. I'm not going to analyze or break down or speak for Raila Odinga, but let's put it in context. First of all, I don't know if you had seen it. You'd all seen it. Is there need for concern? I'll start with you, Irene, since you represent the side of Azimio, from where you sit, in terms of, will Azimio, kind of fight or be against Christianity, because that's how it's being forwarded and made to look?
Yeah, my concern, first of all, is the fact that this video has been edited, because it leaves out the very last statement that Raila said, and I was actually in attendance in this meeting that day.
What was the context? What was the meeting? When?
The meeting was, I think, 2 days ago with the Kenya National Muslim Women Association, and the very last statement he said to that was that we need to have balance in terms of the religions that we have in this country, because Kenya is not a country that is of just one religion. It's not a Christian-only country. We have Muslims in this country. We have Hindus in this country. We have people who are also non-partisan in terms of any religion. And what he said is that we need to achieve a level of balance for everyone, so that everyone has a fair platform here in terms of what it is that they're getting from this country. And I don't see anything wrong with that, because our constitution does not specifically say that Kenya is a Christian country. It doesn't say
we just dim ourselves to be 80% a Christian nation, since we're 80%.
Yes. And so for Christians as well, and I am a Christian as well, we need to be in a space where we are accommodating people from other religions as well. Yeah, that we are ensuring that there's fairness across the table in terms of opportunities that they're getting and that sort of thing. Right. And from the sentiments of the Muslim women, even their reaction, it was quite clear that they feel that they're not getting as much fairness as they would want from this country. Yeah. Muslims, again, this is a religion that has been judged in on so many levels, not just in Kenya but across the world. Because the first thing that when someone says they're a Muslim that comes to your mind is, this is a terrorist. Yeah. So that is also something else that comes as a concern.
The profiling, which is very unfortunate, and even the Cabinet Secretary for Education is under fire to apologize for directing some unfortunate comments to our colleague here, Rukia Bulle. And from Alan, from where you sit, you don't have to declare your faith, but please do if you're proud of it. But should Christians be worried from this clip because it's being forwarded and questions are being raised, and that's how it's being framed?
I think number one, how I wish the entire full clip could be played so that you get the context of what Raila meant. But again, I strongly believe that, you know, sometimes I can even call you a different name. So maybe probably that could be a slip of the tongue, because I strongly believe that Kenya is a religious nation, and religious, we have all faith just the same way Irene had said. So in terms of the clip, I think there are some issues that should not be politicized, and that is issues of religion. And let me leave at that and say that I strongly believe that that is not the position. Wangu.
It's okay. No peace religion. Okay. Yes. No pressure on that. Masaki, from your end?
I think this is a deliberate move by Azimio, and this has actually been played out even in the recent past, because you remember they had raised issues even in terms of the small churches, how they're going to close them once they take power. So this is a clear indication that they don't want us to have all balanced. As much as they're calling it balanced, they don't want more of growth of these small churches and Christianity as a country. I don't know what is the agenda. I don't know, maybe they don't believe in God. But it is very clear that they have a deliberate move in terms of how they're going to suppress the rights to religion in our country, because they have not played it outrightly in terms of how they're going to support. They're only laying out in terms of how they're going to balance it, but it has not played it well. But in terms of what they have already stated before, as their coalition, they have stated clearly that they want to close the small churches.
Is that the meaning of it, or I mean, because you're the leader of Kenya Kwanza, that is the deputy president, has been on record saying that he will support the church, and in fact he's gotten a lot of criticism for that in the way he goes about it, whether it's the donations and what have you, and that's a story for another day. But I mean, are you saying on record that's what they've said? Because religion is very sensitive. So are you saying that it is on record that they want to close small churches?
They have already laid out those in terms of information. Because we have challenged.
It's not from the mouth of...
It is not from the mouth, but you remember the first lady, or I can say it, the wife. The wife to...
You're happy about that slip of the tongue.
It's only first lady to the right honorable, not to us.
Go ahead.
Okay,
yes.
So he stated out clearly, and he said that we have had growth of so many of these churches, and they've had also many issues in terms of how we are supporting the churches. Okay. And you see, that is our own rights. We are supporting just as much as we are supporting churches. We have built more mosques with our own presidential candidate. He has supported all the religions, but you don't need to come out outrightly, because religion is very sensitive. You don't need to portray it outright to the public that this is the intention of how you're going to do, because it might be able to affect some of those people actually.
Before I give Irene a chance to respond, because just to be fair, she needs to on that. But from where you sit, should Christians be worried about this clip that's being spread around?
Yes, we need to be very worried. So? Yes, we need to be very worried, because they have not played it outrightly in terms of how they're going to do the balance. Okay. But we are relating in terms of how they have been able to communicate before to the public in terms of what is the intentions in terms of the growth of churches.
Irene, besides just playing the full clip of this and giving the context, you've told us you were there 2 days ago. Do you think that there needs to be more, addressing this issue? Because it's almost like the issue of tribalism in Kenya. It's very sensitive. Do you see from where you sit and who you represent, that is Azimio side, there's need to clarify this is what is meant? Because this is a season of spinning. Can be spun whichever way.
Yeah, I know this is a season of spinning, and that's exactly what happened with this particular clip. And what I know from our presidential candidate is that today he's going to actually clarify and state clearly what it is that that he meant by that statement for the sake of the people who were not in that meeting. But just to respond to Masaki on what he said in terms of closing churches, that's not what the First Lady said. What she said was that she advocates for these smaller churches to be documented properly, for them to be registered under the different organizations, so that there's clear process. Yeah, because we have a lot of churches that mushroom all over the place, and which is not a bad thing. You go to estates, you'll find literally there's a church in every particular place. And so for you to be able to know that this is a genuine church and this is what they stand for, it is proper for them to be properly registered. And I don't think there's anyone who has
to be above board.
Yes, but she didn't say close churches.
Okay, but we're looking forward to that clarity, and you say later on it will be the case from the leader of Azimio. It has been doing rounds, and you know what what happens with those videos. As you say, it's cut at a certain point, and I mean that's what we've used just to bring it to the public for discussion, just to clarify, because it is sensitive. Let's get to the youth vote, and with the latest figures that we have as we wind up, as I'm told we have a few minutes now, out of the total 22.1 million Kenyans registered to vote, the youth are at 39.8%. If my math isn't failing me, 8.79 million, which is a decline of since 2017. The number of young voters registered for Kenya's August elections has dropped despite the total number of people who have signed up to cast their ballots increasing by more than 12%. As we get to the youth vote, do you see this as voter apathy, especially with the youth, that is 18 to 34 or 18 to 35? How do you read this, the decline in the youth vote?
I think, Mark, when we began, I'm privileged because, like I said, I sit at the IEBC NEC. But again, apart from that, I have really participated in ensuring that young people get votes, are educated, and now we are going to, they also participate in voting processes. And when we started, I think many young people didn't want actually to take even the votes. They didn't want. And when you are asking them reason, it's because of the confidence. The majority of them had lost confidence, lack of information, and many
losing confidence in who? What exactly?
Leadership.
Okay.
Yes. Then also the majority of them actually were ignorant. They didn't know in terms of even registering the advantages of that, the importance of their vote. But I think we were able to talk with IEBC. We are the people who champion, and we got BVR kits that were taken, for example, to the universities. And they were open in that you could be able to register while in the University of Nairobi and vote from the places that you come from. That is number one, really going to the doorsteps of the youth. So we were able to get a lot of young people registering. And majority of actually the first and the second BVR kits, people who registered were from the universities. And that can be confirmed from IEBC. And because I think of the initiative that they took. But again, in regard to voter apathy, I think there's a lot of voter education that has to be done, especially for the ones who have registered. Like I've said, initially majority of the people didn't register because, of course, of the confidence and all those issues. But right now, the people who had registered, there's a lot that IEBC has done through, of course, the support of UNDP and other partners. And I think majority of the people, I strongly believe, will be able to participate. And another thing that actually was making many young people also not vote is also the confidence with IEBC. Of course, it was an issue because many people are raising question, why should I vote, and yet probably the result is known.
Why should I vote? Yes. Are you concerned with these figures, especially for the youth being an important block of the electorate and the nation?
I'm actually concerned and actually very sad about it because in this country, youth make up 75% of the people we have in this country. Majority of these young people, especially between the age of 28 and 34, are parents. So in essence, these are people who need to make decisions on behalf of their children. So when they don't even go out there and vote, when you ask a young person, why are you not voting? And they tell you it's because they're not concerned, they don't care about it. But you're like, this is your single weapon. If you don't have confidence in this leadership, to change it. to a better leadership. Yeah.
They're not concerned, or what's the use? Is that?
Yeah. What's the use?
Okay.
I mean, and even when you look at social media, and one of the things that the other day I raised as well is, for example, when we were having the KCP results come out, for example. But you'll find the one thing that will trend on that day is things that are just scandalous issues, rather than the things that are integral and concerning about this country. What I think needs to happen is for young people to be able to understand that the single most important weapon you have is your voter's card.
Yeah.
Is that this education needs to happen, not only in schools, but even in the living rooms in our homes.
Okay.
Yeah, it needs to start with our own children when they're young, for them to learn the importance of why you need to go out there and vote. Yeah, when you go out there and look at the people who attend rallies, majority of them are young people. But then again, these same people are not going to vote. So why would candidates even speak to people that are not going to go out there and vote on that day?
Okay.
Yeah, and I hope, I truly hope on the voting day, I wish Kenya would do what Botswana did.
No,
but this is very important because there's one election period that Botswana had, and the president of Botswana then said, 4 days to election day, he's closing all the bars. I truly wish that that would happen in this country, so that more majority of young people...
Say again. Pardon me. No, just clarify. To close all the entertainment spots.
Yes.
So you want that for Kenya?
Yeah, so that people don't drink until 6 a.m. and then they don't go, and because they have hangovers, they're not going to vote.
Masaki, are you concerned with the youth numbers? And I mean, you ask people, utapiga kura? You hear, and I've asked people, you hear, no. Why? There's what's the use, then there's also, no, it's controversial, kitu ishamuliwa.
I think there's voter apathy because of the issues that many young people have actually lost confidence in terms of how they're being involved in this voting session. They actually feel they are being used as voting robots during election time, and now they're now neglected. I think it is important that we continue to speak to young people that they need to come out and vote and participate in the election, so that their vote can be able to account to the leadership that they want. If we fail to participate in this electoral process as young people, then we fail, because they say bad leaders are elected by good people who don't vote. Okay? So if it is very important that we as leaders, we in our position as young people, we need to encourage more young people that let's come out clearly and let's participate in this electoral process. As much the issues are being raised in this institution, we have to support them. We have to come out clearly. We cannot let people decide for us. We need to be part and parcel of this process. And also, they feel in terms of some of the things that they want to envision themselves in once the election is over. They want to participate also in the leadership process of the country. But they have been left aside. This cuts across that we need to come out clearly, and as ourselves as Kenya Kwanza, we have already laid out our manifesto out in terms of how we are going to work with young people and also improve in terms of improve the economy with them being involved as in.
You speak as one who will be seeking votes very soon, Masaki, and so all the best if you'll be doing that. But right now you're holding forward for the youth of Kenya Kwanza, and yes, just as a quick yes or no. Usiniambie utapigia nani? I guess the writing is on the wall. Utavote?
Yes, I'm going to vote.
Utavote?
6 a.m.
Utakuwa hapo. Utavote?
I will vote.
All right. Thank you for voting for NTV in terms of the choice to watch this morning and to get your day's update. A lot to look forward to in terms of the news and what the days ahead, 10 days to the election, hold for us with the meeting of IEBC and presidential candidates and the campaign activity around the country. So Irene Mayaka, ODM nominee to the National Assembly, Asante, Samuel Masaki, Youth for Kenya Kwanza Presidential Campaign Coordinator, Shukran, and Alan Chacha, the Executive Director, Universities and Colleges Students Peace Association of Kenya. Asante sana, and thank you for watching. Thank you to my director and my colleagues who have made this possible. Nimesikia mtu akisema hata sina voters card, lakini anyway, I won't say who. Let's end it here and hand over to your world with Winnie Lubembe.